Hello, and welcome to Boomi Essentials. This is the first class in your Boomi training journey. Let's begin by looking at our agenda. In Atom-Sphere Basics, which is broken into two sections, you'll learn important terms to help you understand Atom-Sphere, and then we'll take a tour of the Atom-Sphere platform. Next, you'll learn about how processes are built, deployed, and managed through the appropriately named Build tab, Deploy tab, and Manage tab. Finally, we'll wrap things up with a complete walkthrough of a Boomi process and examine the available help and support options. Before we begin our class, it's important to understand what you need. First, make sure the activity guide is in front of you, either printed or on your screen or tablet. During class, I'll demonstrate exercises, and then you complete those exercises on your own. As I demonstrate an exercise, just sit back, watch, and listen, and then you can complete the exercise using our step-by-step activity guide. Please do not work ahead. This class is designed so concepts from one exercise lead into the next, so you don't want to miss out on some important information while I'm demonstrating the exercise. And finally, it's not all about the activity guide. I have slides to share, exercises to demonstrate along the way. I'll also make it clear when to watch and listen and when to work on your own exercises. This concludes our welcome section. In our next section, we'll discuss Atom-Sphere Basics. Let's begin by entering the Atom-Sphere platform to learn about the different options available to you. In this class, we'll focus on the Build tab most of our time. On the outside looking in, the Dell Boomi Integration Cloud serves as a central hub between your data. This is a visual depiction of what we do at a high level. The best way to think of our service is cloud middleware. We are the plumbing between the various applications, whether they live in the cloud or on-premise. We can integrate applications in the cloud, on-premise, or in both locations. Let's first access the Atom-Sphere platform. The Atom-Sphere platform sits in the cloud and is easily accessible by any internet browser using the URL of platform.boomi.com. Now, although any browser can be used, we have seen the least amount of issues using Mozilla Firefox or Google Chrome due to their Java handling. So try to use one of these as your browser. Before class, you should have received an email containing your Atom-Sphere account ID. Your account was created using the email address you provided when you registered for the class, which is your username. If you already have a password for that username, then go ahead and log in using your existing credentials. If you have login issues or cannot remember your password, click Help, I forgot my password link. Let me log into the account, and then you can pause the video and log into your account. Because I'm a new user, I'm going to log in and I'm going to paste that password, that temporary password. It will automatically give me a change password screen. So I need to just paste that temporary password and enter in a new password, and I will need to confirm it. There are password policies. They must be a minimum of 6 characters in length. They can't match commonly used passwords, which is easy because I don't have any. And I cannot have any repeated characters or alphanumeric or keyboard sequence. So I'm going to type in my new password, and I will confirm it. I will click on OK. Now I will enter with my new password. Clicking OK once again, and now I am in. Now we just happen to have a release, so this comes down and this will tell us what has happened in our new release. You can get information. We have releases 11 times a year, so you can go in and you can take a look at this. So now I'm in my Atom-Sphere account. Now that I'm logged in, you can pause the video and then you can log into your account. Now that we're logged in, let's move into our next lesson and learn more about Atom-Sphere Basics. Let's look at the Atomsphere UI. It's important to understand the different sections of the Atomsphere UI because we refer to them by name in all of our classes. Once logged in, the Welcome tab is displayed, containing links to open a recent item, create a new component, and learn about our platform with our reference guide. The administration links control and access account settings. You can quickly gain access to support materials and services, or you can switch between your different Dell Boomi applications. Now, it's important to make sure that you are in a training account. The way that you can tell is the name of your training account is training dash your first name, then your dash, then your last name, and then your company. If this is not the name of your account, you can switch to your training account by placing your cursor over the account name to select Switch Account, and this is going to allow you to search for your training account. The Lifecycle menu contains links to the overall process lifecycle. These include Dashboard, Build, Deploy, and Manage. Let's take a closer look at the Build tab, which is where you will develop a process from beginning to end. It's also the first step in the development lifecycle. Clicking on the plus new button accesses the Create Component window, where you can create new components. The Component Explorer lists all process components which exist in the account. The universal component bars contain open tabs as well as the Save, Close, and Save and Close buttons. Atomsphere does not have an auto-save function, but you are reminded to save when you're leaving and executing a test. The Process Canvas is where you create and execute your process in the Build tab. The Shapes palette displays all the available execution and logic shapes available. And the Process Action buttons sets up an option, extensions, nodes, shows navigation, and most importantly, it will run a test. The Process Library lets master accounts publish processes and API components to sub-accounts, which can serve as templates for new processes. Users get accounts to the published processes and install copies into their accounts. Dell Boomi also publishes processes for account users to install as samples and snippets to help direct development for certain common integration patterns. You can get access to the process library by clicking on Browse Process Library button at the bottom of the Component Explorer section. As you can see in this slide, Dell Boomi has specific built-in process templates and continues to add new processes each month. The process library installs specific training processes for accounts for all of our training classes. The processes are listed by name under the Boomi Training parent. You can also search the process by name, connector, end system, or description in the search box. Of course, the processes are just templates to get us started, and we need to develop, create, add, and configure shapes as part of the integration process. Now that you have a better understanding of the Atomsphere platform and options, it's time to learn about the Dell Boomi integrations. Let's begin by answering the question, what is a Dell Boomi integration? Dell Boomi makes it possible for companies to integrate applications, data, and trading partners directly from the web by using a visual designer with access to a library of integration components. These components, which are referred to as shapes, are easily added by clicking, dragging, and dropping them into the process canvas, and then connecting them to one another. As displayed by this image, it's fairly easy to understand the process flow, moving left to right. Once you begin building your own processes, you'll quickly become familiar with each shape and better understand its function. Another term we use during class is Atomsphere process. So what is an Atomsphere process? is the core integration component. It typically represents a discrete workflow, which moves documents from one application to another. Processes are built, deployed, and managed. They contain all of the shapes and components needed for a full integration flow. And the act of running a process is called an execution. An Atom Sphere process and a Dell Boomi integration are interchangeable in most cases. A good way to think of the difference is a process is a single group of connected shapes, which perform a desired action. An integration refers to the total integration solution for a particular desired action. In many cases, a single process is needed to complete an integration solution, but for more complex actions, you may need to build an integration solution made of several processes. So far, we have defined an integration and a process and learned that they are made of shapes. So let's take time to define and discuss shapes. All shapes are in the Build tab. They are contained in a palette to the right of the process canvas, as shown in this slide, and they are grouped under three categories: connectors and logic headings. Now you can add shapes to control the process canvas and connect them. By connecting shapes, you control how the data flows within the process. Each shape in the process does a specific task on given data and can be transformed back into the process and manipulated by other shapes further down the path. Every shape is a bundle of pre-configured code which performs a particular job. Shapes remove the need to do any coding and only need specific fields to be filled out. Again, these shapes are found in the Component Explorer under three categories. Execute shapes manipulate or transform data. This includes tasks such as changing the document type, perhaps XML, comma delimited, or a flat file, combining and separating records between documents, and manipulating certain parts of the data statically or dynamically. Logic shapes control the flow of the data through the process. You can route documents down different paths, create a series of required paths to separate different branches of a process, or even set up logic to confirm your data is based off a specific criteria. Connect shapes get the data into the process or send it out of the process. This happens via connections made to tools such as databases, FTP, and CRM, just to name a few. Some shapes we'll use today. For execute, we'll use a map, which is going to transform the data from one profile to another. We're also going to use a set properties shape. This sets specific connector properties such as a disk file name or an FTP directory for our documents. Under the logic, we're going to be using the branch shape, which creates a copy of a document and passes it down each branch in sequential order. And finally, for the connect, we're going to be using connectors, which are used to get data into and out of our process. Components are reusable configuration objects, including APIs, certificates, connections, connector operations, cross-reference tables, document caches, maps, map functions, processes, process properties, process route, profiles, queues, and trading partners. They're listed in the Component Explorer. Components are created once and referenced by the process shapes across many processes. This modular design simplifies maintenance because the configuration changes are made once and then instantly applied everywhere where the component is referenced. In this class, we use a number of components. Connectors, each shape will have a connection and an operation component, profiles, and maps. Now back to the bigger picture. Configuring an Atom Sphere integration is a simple three-step process. The first step is to build an integration. In the Build tab, using our Visio Work-like tool, you can drag and drop shapes to configure your integration for logic, validation, data cleansing, and transformation from source to destination systems. AtomSphere supports over 100 branded connectors to systems like Salesforce, NetSuite, and SAP, and over 10 traditional connectors such as databases, flat files, XML, and web services. Our connectors allow you to abstract away the code usually needed to connect to an application, leaving you with a wizard-driven approach. Once the data is created, the second step is to deploy the integration. Using our Atom integration technology, we support the ability to deploy an integration in the cloud for integrating between SaaS, PaaS, and other cloud integration applications, or safely behind your firewall to connect to an on-premise application. Finally, in the third step, you can centrally manage all of your deployed integrations anywhere you have an internet connection. From our dashboard, you can see what was processed, when it was processed, and view the logs and the status of each integration. This allows for system alert notifications to automatically tell you via RSS or email when the integration is successful or in error. This concludes our AtomSphere's basic portion of our class. Our next video will focus on the Build tab. We're almost ready to begin building our first AtomSphere process. The following slides review our integration scenario for the day. For today's training, we're going to assume we are Dell Boomi AtomSphere consultants, assigned with the job of designing an integration process to handle data entering in an online form. Here is our business use case for today's training. Customers will enter account and contact information onto an online form to sign up for an AtomSphere trial account. The form information is then stored in an online data store, an FTP server, and an XML process. Now, the files we'll be bringing into the process are on Boomi's own FTP server, which we'll be connecting to. We'll build an Excel spreadsheet with the latest account data and archive it on our server for reporting. Excel cannot read XML, so we need to convert the XML data to CSV format before saving it to our server. So let's examine the FTP resource that we're going to be accessing. I've logged into our FTP site so you can take a look. Our FTP site is called ftp.boomi.com. We have a directory off the root called accounts. Everything is lowercase and it is plural for the name. There are two files in there we will be using. One is called account1.xml, the other one's called account2.xml. I'm just going to click on account1.xml. This is what it looks like. It has a company ID, a name, a street address, city, state, postal code, country, phone, and industry, and then it has a contact. And account XML2 is set up the exact same way. So let's return back to our slide. We now understand the high-level concept of the business scenario, so now we need to translate it into how our integration developer would think. The integration goal is as follows. We are going to request the account XML data be loaded into our FTP data store. This pulls the customer's contact information currently in the XML format from the FTP data store into our own process. We need to have our process archive a copy of the XML file on the server directory. Now keep in mind that our disk location is where our Atom resides, so no files are saved on your computer, and we're going to cover this in more detail in a few moments. We need to build a second branch of our process to convert our XML data into our comma delimited flat file. This allows us to export the data into our fictional Excel spreadsheet. Now, the Excel spreadsheet doesn't actually exist, but it's used in our example. Finally, we need to archive our new CSV file onto our server directory. Now we're going to build out these shapes into what we refer to as an atom sphere process. I'm going to walk you through the first steps in creating your new integration, so don't worry. You'll have an opportunity to complete this on your own. And like all of our exercises in this manual, I will walk through them first, and then you will complete the activity on your own. So while I'm demonstrating these steps, just sit back and take in everything that's happening without having to worry about duplicating what I'm doing on the fly. I'm going to do exercise number 1, setting up your folders, and exercise number 2 to download your process endpoints from the process library. These are in your activity guide on pages 5 to 9. So let's begin with exercise number 1, folder setup. What we're going to do is we're going to go all the way to our root folder. For you, the root folder is going to be training dash your first name dash your last name dash your company name. We just have ours labeled as Boomi Training. We're going to come up here and we're going to click new folder. We're going to create a folder off the root to house our work known as Boomi Essentials. We're going to create another folder. This folder is going to house all of our common connections, and we'll be going over how this is going to be used shortly. We're going to click on the drop down off of the root directory, select new folder, and this is going to be called # connections. We call it # because we always want it to be the very first directory. And directories are stored in alphabetical order. So if we didn't put the # there, it would be Boomi Essentials and then Connections. So we want this to be the first, so we're going to put the # on it. That concludes exercise number 1 for folder setup. What we're going to do is move into exercise number 2, and we're going to download a process from the process library. We're going to click on the process library, which is at the very bottom of your folders. We're going to search for Boomi Essentials. We're going to find that there's 2 out there. There's one called Account XML to CSV and then Count XML to CSV solution. The solution is the full process, fully built out. Use that if you are stuck or you need a little bit of help. But to do is we're going to be working, of course, with the Account XML to CSV. We're going to click on the Install button. It's going to ask us what we want to call it. We do want to call it Account XML to CSV. It's going to ask us where we want it, and we're going to put this in the Boomi Essentials folder. We're going to click on Install. Just want to point out to you that the process has been loaded. It's over here into the Component Explorer. So now your Account XML to CSV has been downloaded and you're ready to get started. The video concludes now, but please complete both exercises before moving on to the next video, which will be focusing on connectors. As you do, build out your process. Remember to save. If you don't save, it doesn't exist. Let's discuss the FTP connector options. Since we need to retrieve documents from our FTP, we need to set up an FTP connector shape. Let's discuss the core connector options, which help us to configure our start shape. It is the main component containing all the information needed to connect to a single FTP server. Like any connector, it is a combination of 2 parts. The first being the connection, or the where, which is the FTP server hostname and user login. The second is the operation, or the how, which is a get or send action along with a subdirectory and file filter definition. First, you create a reusable FTP connection component. Here's what each connection option does. The host is the host name, the IP address, or the domain name of the FTP server where the FTP application exists. In our case, it's ftp.boomi.com. Port is the FTP server port, which listens for incoming client connections. The default port is 21. The connection mode is active or passive. This is how the FTP client initiates both connections to the server, solving the problem of firewalls, filtering the incoming data port connection from the server. Passive is commonly used. Finally, we have the username and password, which represents the user login information for the account on the FTP server. Now, please keep in mind this connection is a component, meaning once it's created, you can refer to it in other FTP connector shapes instead of creating a new one. Next, let's look at some options in the SSL Options subtab. Now, once selected, the new options appear in the connector window. The first is SSL mode. It can be none, explicit, or implicit. These are the methods for invoking the different types of client security. It enables the ability to support FTPS, otherwise known as FTP-SSL. Use client security. If this is checked, it enables the client certificate import and definition if the FTP administrator requires it. For all FTP read requests, there are some common fields in the operation component. The first is the FTP action. This will be either get or get and delete. You will be retrieving the files and then defining an optional delete command. Remote directory is the subdirectory if the FTP user needs access deeper than the base directory. File filter. This locates files based on a pattern matching using the file name. You can use wildcards such as a star for everything or a question mark to wildcard an individual character to create file name patterns. Transfer type. This transfers the files as text or raw data. Maximum files to read sets the greatest number of files to read at once. The default value is 0 for all. Well, that was a lot of information to review for just one connector. As you'll see, though, it'll make more sense when you watch me build it out. I'm going to walk through how to set up the FTP connector for our scenario. Remember, just sit back and watch as I build this out, and then I'll have you complete these steps on your own. Now I'm going to do exercise number 3 to access the FTP connection, and exercise number 4 to create an FTP operation. This is in your book on pages 10 to 15. We're going to begin with exercise 3, accessing the FTP connector. And click on your start shape. It is type connector. The connector type is FTP. The action is get. Because this is a start shape, traditionally we only have access to retrieve files. We will not have access to write. Our connection is created for us, but let's take a quick look at it. This is logging us into that ftp.boomi.com. The port is going to be 21. Our connection mode is passive. Remember, this can be passive or active. It will be passive. We give it the username, which is Boomi Train, and the password is encrypted. Let's now move to exercise 4 to create the FTP operation. We're going to click on the plus symbol to create a new operation. For the name of the operation, they all default to the name new, perhaps FTP connector operation. We're going to call ours account XML get. Our connector action is get, and our FTP action, we have a choice of get or get and delete. We want it to be get because we don't want to delete the file, we just want to retrieve it. The directory we're getting access to is called accounts. It's off the root directory. The name is accounts. When you enter information into an FTP directory, it is case sensitive as well as spelling sensitive, so please be careful, make sure it is all lowercase and it is plural. The file folder name is going to be account with an uppercase A, and then we're going to wildcard it. Remember that the file names were account-1.xml and account-2.xml. So we don't really care what the extension is. We don't care about if it's a 1 or a 2, but we just want those files that begin with account. Once again, this is case sensitive, so the A must be uppercase, and then the rest of the letters must be lowercase. The type we're going to be reading is binary. The maximum files to get is how many files do you want to read in at a time. 0 is the default, which means get me everything, and we're okay with that because we know that we only have 2 files out there. I'm going to click the Save and Close button. I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to click Save to save it to the process, and now our process with this FTP start shape is configured. Now when I come over to the component folder, you're going to see that we have our process account XML to CSV, and we have our connector configured. We have the connections, which is the boomitraining.ftp, and the operation, which is the account XML get. Now it is a Boomi best practice to store all of your connections into one folder. So earlier in this class, we made a folder called #connections. And we forced it to the top by using #. What we want to do is store all of our connections in our folder, beginning with our boomitraining.ftp. So what we're going to do is just highlight this. We're going to place our cursor over top of it. The cursor turns into a plus symbol with arrows. We are going to take this and we're going to drop and drag it up to the connection folder. When I go up to the connection folder, the folder does turn yellow. I can leave go. And now when I'm in my connections folder, I have my connector, which is my Boomi FTP connector. And I scroll down and it says boomitraining.ftp. I no longer have it in the connections section of my Boomi Essentials folder. This concludes our video, but please complete both exercises before moving on to the next video. Please complete exercise number 3 to access the FTP connection, and exercise number 4 to create the FTP operation. Our next video will be focusing on our disk connector. With our start shape complete, let's discuss the core options of our end shape, the disk connector. Just like our start shape, the disk connector shape is the main component containing all the information needed to connect to a single directory. Like any connector, it is made up of 2 parts. The connection, or the where, which is the directory definition, and the operation, or the how, which is the get or send, and the file matching or naming definition. Looking at the disk connection component, we see a single field to configure. Directory. This is the directory path definition for reading or writing documents. The directory path is the file for the directory. Remember, the disk directory is always created on the disk where the atom resides. Here's how the logic works when you create the disk shape. The atom, which we've yet to discuss in detail, can reside in 1 or 2 places. In the cloud, or on-premise. If it is in the cloud, the atom resides in a Boomi cloud and does not need to be installed on your machine. If on-premise, then you're going to need to install a local atom on your machine which uses your physical hardware to run your processes. When you execute your process, the disk connector shape figures out whether the directory you noted in the directory field exists. If it does exist, it saves the documents to that directory. However, if it does not exist, it creates where the atom resides, either cloud or disk. And then it saves the documents to the newly created directory where the atom resides. You now understand your configuration options for your disk connection. So let's discuss your disk operation component options when configuring a write request. The first is create directory. This creates a directory on the server during the process execution if it doesn't exist. File naming options. If the file already exists, what do you want to do? Do you want to create a unique file, which will append a 1 or 2 at the end of it? Do you want to override it? Do you want to append to it? Do you want to error? What action do you want to complete? Now I'm going to show you how to set up your disk connector for our activity. And this is exercise number 5, access the disk connection, and exercise number 6, create a disk operation. Both of these are in your book on page 16 to 21. We're now going to do exercise number 5 to access the disk connection, and exercise number 6 to create the disk operation. I'm going to click on the disk shape. The connector type is disk. The action is send. You do have 2 options here of get or send. We are writing to the disk, so we want to make sure it is send. The first thing we want to do for exercise number 5 is to access the disk connection. So we're going to click on the plus symbol to create a new disk connection. For the name window, we're going to enter work directory. We're going to change it from new disk connection to work directory. And the directory name itself is going to be called work. Now this is going to be lowercase. It is case and spelling sensitive. In your book on page 17, I would like to point out step note, that's a checkbox. It says the files for our training exercises are written to the directory on the test atom cloud. The directory name is both case and spelling sensitive. So please make sure you type work in lowercase. I'm going to click on the Save and Close button. And we have completed exercise number 5. We have accessed our disk connection. Moving on to exercise number 6, we're going to come over here to the operation and we're going to select New. For the name, we're going to change the name to be Write Unique. Do we want to create a directory if it doesn't exist? We do, so we're gonna check the box. For our file naming options, we can create a unique name. If the file exists, it'll append a number to the end. We can override it, we can append to it, or we can error if the file exists. We're gonna go with create unique name if file exists. And now we're gonna click on the Save and Close button. I have created my work directory and my write unique operation. I'm going to click on OK, and they are displayed over here. Now, as we mentioned when we were in the FTP, it is best practice to store all of our connections in one # connection folder. So what we're going to do is take our connection and we will put this into our # connection folder. As we do with our FTP directory, what we're going to do is we're going to take this work directory connection and we're going to drop it up here in the # connections folder. The way we do it, we'll place our cursor on top of work directory. The cursor will change. It will be a plus symbol with little arrows at each end. We will press our mouse down and then we will just drop and drag it up to # connections. Once it goes yellow, we will release it. And now we have 2 connections up here, one for the work directory and one for the FTP. The last thing that we want to do is set this up so we will get our directories, we will get our fields from the FTP, and they will be written to our disk. Today, if we were to run it the way we have it set up right now, what will happen is it will get the records from the start shape, but it will never place them on the disk. And the reason being is because we haven't told Atomsphere we want to do that. So the way that we do it is we come over here and we place our cursor on top of the red arrow that is connected to the FTP shape, the start shape, and we drop and drag it over. We drag it over, and we place it on top of the disk shape. And now it is a green arrow. So in the world of Atomsphere, you'll hear the saying that green is good, red is dead. If it's red, it's not connected to anything. If it's green, it's good, and it will flow from this shape to the next shape. So now our process is all set up to run. This concludes our video, but please complete both exercises before moving to the next video about the Dell Boomi Atom Cloud. With our endpoints configured, it's time to learn more about the runtime engine that runs our process, the Boomi Atom. The Boomi Atom is a lightweight, self-contained runtime engine. It can handle a combination of SaaS to SaaS or SaaS to on-premise integrations from one platform. We can deploy it behind the firewall for on-premise integrations or in the cloud. It provides clustering capability through the Boomi molecule and enterprise-grade security. The Boomi Atom Cloud provides an optional hosted environment for deployment. Regardless of the deployment option, all Atoms provide runtime metadata to the platform for continuous monitoring. Soon we're going to configure our own Cloud Atom to test our process. This lets our process to connect to the newly configured endpoints to pull in the data from the FTP and send it to our work directory. We're about to run our test process, but before we do, we must enable the runtime Atom to handle the process execution. We'll talk more about Atoms during the deployment and manage section of this class, but for now let's enable the two Atoms which we will be using in training, the Dell Boomi Atom Cloud and the Test Atom Cloud. We're now going to complete exercise 7, enable the Atom Cloud and the Test Atom Cloud. This is in your activity guide on pages 22 to 24. All right, we're going to do exercise number 7 to enable the Atom Cloud and the Test Atom Cloud. We're on our welcome page. We're going to come over to where it says Atom Runtime, and the first item we're going to click on is the Atom. There are two types of atoms. There are local atoms and in the cloud. For the setup preference, we're going to select in the cloud. Now, when we select in the cloud, there are two types of atoms. There are the Atom Cloud and the Test Atom Cloud. We're going to start off by selecting the Test Atom Cloud, and we're going to give it an atom name of Test Atom Cloud. Now I'm going to click the OK button, and we get a message saying our new atom has been set up in the Test Atom Cloud. We're going to click on the Close button now. We're going to do this again, but this time we're going to do it for the Atom Cloud. So we're going to click on Runtime and then Atom, once again in the cloud, and we're going to select the only one that's out there right now, which is the Atom Cloud, and we're going to call it the Atom Cloud. We click on the OK button. Once again, we get a message saying our atom has been set up in the Atom Cloud. This concludes our video, but please complete exercise number 7 before moving on to the next video. In Atomsphere, you can unit test integrations in a visual, real-time view of the document flow. We call this test mode, and it is in the Build tab. To enter test mode, click on the Test button, which is located at the top right hand of the process canvas. Test mode supports unit testing of a limited set of documents. Connectors only support the retrieval of 100 maximum document count or 10 megabytes of total data size. So let's run a test of our process to see how the Boomi document flow works. We're now going to run our process and examine our output. The way we test our process is we click on the blue test button, We're going to select our atom. We selected the test atom cloud. We're going to click Run Test, the green Run Test button. Process will now run. It is currently running. You can tell because there's a yellow halo and there is a circle. Everything ran successfully. The way we can tell is that there are two halos on your data. The halos indicate they're green, which means that there are no problems. If the halo is red, then you have an issue. Let's take a look at our output. You'll currently notice that we have our square on our start shape. This means that our focus is on the start shape, so everything we see down here will be focused on the start shape. If I come over to connection data, I have two records that I retrieved. This is the first record. It's coming from ftp.boomi.com, port 21, the remote directory accounts, and this is the account-1.xml. If I click on this, you will see the XML. Formatted viewer is on. If you come on and it looks like this, the formatted viewer is off. You can just slide this over. I'm going to close the viewer. Just click on the second. You'll see your second record. When I click on the disk, it moves the When I click on the disk, it now moves the focus to the output. I have my file right here. If I click on it, this is my output. It tells me a file name. Look at the file name. The file name is the date and time the process is ran, .dat. And then over here we have the size. Same thing for over here. We can click on view. This is the first one. It'll give you the XML. This is the file name. This is the date and time that the process is ran. And then all the way over here is the size. Now, the file itself is in the work directory of the test atom cloud. So we need to use the document viewer, as you saw, to view the contents. We don't have physical access to the file because it is in the cloud. We need to save the contents to our physical drive. To download the file, we're going to copy and paste the information from the document viewer into a text editor such as Notepad, and we're going to save it onto our hard drive, which we're going to use in the next activity to import. One of the things that you want to do before you copy and paste it into Notepad is you want to turn the formatting off. So now what I will do is I will highlight it, I will copy it, and I can now paste it into Notepad. If you're going to use Notepad, please make sure the formatting is off, otherwise it goes in incorrectly. What I'm going to do is save this to my hard drive. And I happen to have a hard drive where I have a little folder called Boomi Out where I save my files, any of my Notepad files, and I'm going to call this account.xml. I'm going to close Notepad. I'm going to close the document viewer. And I am done looking at my process, so I'm just going to click the arrow, and this will take me back to the Build tab. This concludes our video, but please complete exercise 8 and make sure that your process is working correctly before moving to the next video. As of now, our process doesn't do much. We've created our connection endpoints and retrieved all the necessary documents at the start shape. As we prepare to fine-tune our process, it's important to understand what powers the execution. The document. Dell Boomi supports 5 raw document types: XML, JSON, flat file, database, and EDI. Documents are presented in 4 different formats: record for flat files and databases, transactions for XML and EDI, file instance for any communication between systems not needing a structured analysis, for instance, an email attachment or an export to disk. And finally, empty, for simple triggering of later steps in a process. To understand how documents flow through our process, let's take a look at this simple example. Documents often represent individual files read into the process. However, it's important to understand that a single document may contain many records. If this is the case, it's useful to use the data process shape split action to split a document so each has a single record for processing. For example, this is useful for handling a large daily batch file of purchase orders. By splitting the number into many documents, this allows for each purchase order to be processed and followed independently. For example, let's assume we've read many documents into the start shape. Each represents a single record for a person's account information. Upon the process execution, the documents are retrieved and sent down the process flow path. The document flow is gathered together as a group, but they are independent, and they meet at a map shape, which changes documents from one document type to another. Here we are converting the documents from XML to a comma delimited flat file. We'll learn about the map shape shortly. Our documents now have the data process shape applied to them. In this example, the 4 documents are combined into a single document. Due to the data process shape, the 4 account documents, each containing a single record, are now a single batch document consisting of 4 records. The set properties shape adds document properties. In this case, the document is given a specific file name before being written to disk. We'll learn more about the set properties shape soon. The document is then written to disk. Let's look at one more example about how documents can flow through a process. Documents usually flow together as a group by default, but there are some conditional shapes that may send documents down different paths. For example, you can use a decision shape to compare 2 values and send a document either down the true or the false path. In this example, we see, due to the decision shape, 2 documents are sent down the true path and 2 documents are sent down the false path. The paths are not executed in parallel. Instead, they are sequential, so the documents complete the true path before any documents flow down the false path. As we work through our process, we'll talk more about the document flow. This concludes our discussion on document flow. Please proceed to the next video on the set property shape. We'll now continue by discussing document properties and profiles. As discussed earlier, it is possible to apply document properties to a document throughout the process. We are about to introduce another shape into our process and to help us apply a custom file name to each document which passes through it. When the file name is originally outputted, by default, it's saved as a .dat file name equal to its creation date, timestamp in milliseconds, indicating when the process was executed. So when sending a file through a process, the execution does not relay the original document file name. If you want something other than the default file name, you must select the document properties to either rename the file or to keep its original name. We configure properties using the set property shape, which allows you to set values for documents and properties. We use the set property shape to extract runtime related information related to a document, or to set new properties for a destination document. As mentioned earlier, we handle document properties by using the set property shape. The set property shape acts as a 2-part container consisting of the properties to set, such as an FTP file name, and the parameters that are connected to a specific property, such as a static file name. The more we work with the set property shape, the more we're going to understand its flexibility and versatility. Now remember, the set property shape has two portions, the property to set and the parameters to apply to the property. Also, it can take advantage of both static and dynamic parameters. As you can see by this slide, there are many parameters which you can choose from. We often use the set properties shape to serve as a common interface for configuring dynamic runtime inputs, including but not limited to reference elements from documents, reference system date from where the process is executing, define lookup inputs against databases and system APIs, and build dynamic messaging and notifications. Static and dynamic are two document profile types. We'll configure both shortly, but first we must discuss another important component, the profile. To use dynamic parameters, we first need to have something to reference in the desired document. To do this, we create and use what is known as a profile. Profiles describe the document layout or format that is read into or sent out of Atomsphere. For example, to describe a flat file, the profile has field names, delimiters, column positions, data types, min and max shapes, etc. A profile is not a shape, but it is a component that some shapes use. The structure of each profile consists of data elements of a specific document type. The example on this slide is an XML profile. Maps use profiles. To map an XML document to a flat file, set one profile to match the XML file layout and the other profile to match the flat file. You can use individual profiles when inspecting the document data. Individual profile elements are commonly referenced as parameters for decision, cleanse, program command, message, route, document properties, and exception shapes. You can create profiles several different ways. Manually, you can click on the plus new button on the Build tab to create a profile. Since profiles are components, they are saved to the component library and can be referenced over and over. When manually creating a profile, simply click the Add Child element to insert the desired profile element. Upload a file or schema. In an upcoming exercise, you'll learn how to use this option. Using a built-in wizard, you can upload a file or a schema containing the desired profile type and structure from your computer. This auto-populates the elements within the new profile. Import the connector operation. Once the connector component is configured in the connector shape, run the document wizard from the connector shape operation to create a new profile. The wizard will connect to the particular source, such as a database, FTP, CRM system, using the login credentials held within the connection component. Now, once connected, it builds the object tree and allows you to choose the desired elements to import. Once complete, import the object into the new profile where you can make the changes and save it into your Component Explorer. I'm now going to show you how to create an XML profile. We're going to do exercise number 9, create an XML profile. This begins on pages 29 to 32. Let's do exercise number 9 to create our XML profile. We're going to come up to where it says Boomi Essentials in our Component Explorer, the folder. We're going to click on the drop down and select New Component. For the type, we're going to go down where it says Component, and we're going to scroll. They're in alphabetical order, and we're going to select Profile, which is in the P section. The name of the profile is going to be Account XML. It's going to automatically go into the Boomi Training, Boomi Essentials folder, and we want this to be an XML profile. We have a choice. There's two ways of importing our profile. We can select the green Import a Profile button, or we can select the blue Import button. The type of profile can be an XML file, it can be an XML schema, or if you're using EDI, it can be Rosetta Net. We're going to be selecting XML file. We need to choose the file that we want to upload. I have my Boomi out directory. I am going to select the account file. I will click on Next. The wizard will then import my XML file, and it is displayed over here. Next, I will just click on Save and Close to save my XML profile. This portion of our video is concluded, but please make sure you complete the exercise before moving to the next video. We now created the XML profile, so we can use this profile to dynamically reference its data elements. We learned how to use the set property shape earlier, so let's set a dynamic output file using the set property shape. We use multiple parameters to create complex dynamic values for file names or directories. As we'll soon show, one method is to use a profile element. Let's learn how to use these elements within the document to dynamically set a file name so our process makes more sense. Let's say we're reading many files and we're getting the proper data. Now we wish to write them individually to disk. So the naming convention makes it easy to understand what is contained in each file. In the earlier process execution, the file names were simply using a timestamp marked in milliseconds. Using this naming convention really doesn't tell us much about the data contained in the files. Now let's observe these file names. If we could use this naming convention, we understand the file's relative context. We could get more complex, but even with this simple naming convention, we understand which document the account is for. Let's think about where this name came from. Somewhere in the data, there is a reference to the company name. We can refer to this element by using a profile. We are using the XML profile earlier and simply use the set property shape to pull in the profile element. Now I'm going to show you how to set a dynamic file name based off an XML profile that we just created. This is activity number 10 in your book. We're going to set a file name and test our process. In our account XML.csv, we're going to click on Shapes, and we're going to drop and drag the set property shape onto the canvas. In our set property shape, we're going to set a property, so we're going to come over here and click on the plus. The type of property is going to be a document property, and we're going to expand disk, and we're going to set the file name. Once we highlight this, we have the ability to see the parameters. We're going to click on the plus symbol and add a parameter. The first type of parameter we're going to create is a profile element. The profile type we're going to be using is XML, and the profile is going to be in our Boomi Essentials. This is going to be our account XML. We're going to choose a field from there. The field we're going to select is the company name field. We'll click on OK. This is going to give us the company name. It's going to be dynamic, but we always want to have the same extension on it. So what we're going to do is create a static extension because it's always going to have the same extension. We're going to click on the plus. We clicked on the plus. It defaulted to the type of static, which is what we want, and we want it to be type XML. We'll now click on OK, and you'll see that we have the company name .xml. We're going to click on the OK button. Now we're going to bring this up. If we were to run it the way it is right now, it'll go out and get the FTP, it'll get our information, our files, and then it'll write them to disk. This particular item here in the middle does not get executed. Is to move the line from the disk and attach it to the set properties, and then attach the set property shape to disk. So now we have the start, the set properties, and then disk. We're going to give it a run. Using our test atom cloud, it goes through our start, then it goes to set properties, and now it comes over here for our outputted disk. We're going to be able to tell that this worked simply by selecting our connection data. And we'll see that the file name is Bachelcorp. When I come down to here to my second record, you'll see that my file name is Pasco Communications. Both of these files have a .xml extension. When you're setting up your set property shape, it's important for you to understand your parameter order. The name is actually built from top to bottom with the first parameter in the list. So ours was the company name. The second parameter in the list was the static value of .xml. So that's how we got it to be company name .xml. This concludes our video, but please complete the exercise before moving on to the next video. One of the most exciting Atomsphere features is mapping. Our output files are dynamically named, and we need to translate the data from the source XML content to a destination comma-delimited flat file. Remember, the integration goal for this class is not only to archive the original XML file, but to convert those XML files into corresponding CSV files for reporting. A map shape transforms one structured data format or profile to another. In our case, we're going to be transforming our XML files to CSV flat files. Each map has a source profile, your input data, and a destination profile, your output data. These files are imported into the map based on a sample file or schema or manually created. Once the profiles are loaded, it's time to map the corresponding elements. To map the elements, simply drop and drag each source profile element to one or more destination profile elements. Let's set up our map for our business use case. I'm now going to walk through setting up and configuring our map using both the source, which will be an XML profile, and our destination, our flat file profiles. This is exercise number 7, which will be to create a map in the source profile, and exercise number 12 to create a flat file profile, destination profile. This begins in your book on page 39 and it goes to page 34. If you do not have a map shape on your process canvas, you'll just click on Shapes and then drop and drag a map shape onto your process canvas. To configure our map shape, we click on the plus symbol next to the map to choose our map. In the map shape, we're going to name our map Account XML to CSV. Normally, when we create a naming convention for a map, we're always telling it where we're going on our source to our destination. We're going to start off by creating our source profile. We're going to click on the Choose button. We're going to select XML. We're going to go into our Boomi Essentials folder and we're going to select our Account XML. We click on OK, and what it has done is has loaded everything that is in our Account XML file. So we're going to click on the Save button, and we have completed exercise number 11. We've created our map and our source profile. Let's move on to exercise number 12. We're going to create a flat file profile destination. We're going to come over and select Choose on our destination. We're going to be selecting a flat file, and as you can see, it comes up that there is no data to display, so we're going to have to create a brand new flat file. We're going to call this flat file account CSV. We're going to go to the Options tab first. Do we want column headers? Well, we do, so we're going to check this off. What's the file type? You have your two choices. Your file can be delimited or data positioned. We're going to be using a delimited file. What do we want to delimit it with? We have quite a number of choices. We can do a star, comma, tab, tick mark, bar, other, or a byte character. We're going to select comma delimited. And next we have our text qualifier, and I'd like for you to flip to your book onto page 42. There is a note field. We're going to be using a double quote text qualifier. This handles data belonging to a particular field containing a comma, but is not interpreted as a separate data element. So for example, 123 Adams Road, comma, Suite 400. It's going to ignore that comma in that address, so the address belongs to the address field. We are going to use a double quote text qualifier. Now for the text qualifier escape, the delimiter escape, the escape for escape, or the remove escape, we're not going to do anything for those, but if you are interested in learning more about them, please take a look at the reference guide. Now I'm going to click on Save to save my options. And now I'm going to click on my data elements. I want to create 12 data elements, so I'm going to select Add Multiple Elements. I put in the number of elements that I'd like to create. I'm going to type in 12. And notice I have 12 elements listed here. Now they all have the same data name, new flat file element, which means that I'm going to have to modify them. For all of our elements, we're not going to do anything else but modify the data name. So they're not going to be mandatory. We're not going to force them to be unique. We're not going to do anything with the field options or the data formats. So beginning on your book on page 43, our first one is listed, which is the account ID. Notice as I'm typing it here, it is being displayed under the Elements section. I'm going to continue on with our second element, which is the account name. Next, we have industry. We have address 1. Now I'm going to pause the recording, and when I come back, I'll have all of my elements entered. I have entered in my data elements. I'm now going to select Save and Close. And it now populates my destination on my map with all of my data elements. I'm going to click on Save, so I save my map, and this concludes our activity. This concludes our video, but please complete exercise 11 and exercise 12 before moving to the next video. Now that our source and destination profiles are populated, it's time to link the fields. We can do this manually, or we can take advantage of a technology built into Atomsphere called Boomi Suggest. Boomi Suggest is the industry's first community-driven suggestion wizard for integration. It leverages tens of thousands of data maps provided by Atomsphere users to provide you with a confidence level data mapping suggestions. Up to 93% of the data mapping can be auto-generated. Boomi Suggest is very popular with our users because it alleviates the painful and time-consuming aspect of application integrations. In addition, it allows organizations the ability to benchmark their maps against the community. This is an example of how we harness the community's collective intelligence to bring new innovation to our users. Now that you learned about Boomi Suggest, I'm going to show you how to connect the source and destination fields, both manually and by using Boomi Suggest. This is exercise number 13. It's in your book. It's called Map Fields, and it's on pages 45 to 46. With our source and destination profiles now populated, we're going to now map our fields. We're going to begin by mapping our fields manually, and then we're going to talk about Boomi Suggest and how to use it. So let's begin by mapping manually. We're going to come over and map the name field. So we're going to place our cursor on top of the name field, and you can see that it changes. It goes from being an arrow to a plus symbol with arrows on each end, and the word is displayed below, which is company name. All right, I'm going to click on my mouse. I'm going to come over to where the blue is a little bit, and I'm going to click, and notice that I am able to move it, and you can see the company name field. What we're going to do is we're going to drag it all the way to the other side to where our profile is, to the account name field. And notice the account name field turned green. As soon as that turns green, I can leave it go, and I have mapped that field. Let's do another one, the company ID. I'm going to come over, I'm going to highlight that, click on the down arrow, and just keep it clicked, and I'm going to move that over, drop and drag it to the account ID. So everything that I map, I need to be able to unmap, because there are times we may need to do that. So the way we unmap a field is we come over to the destination. We're just going to click on it and just kind of move it off a little bit. You don't have to go very far, but once it stops being green and you've moved it off, you can unclick, and notice that that line is gone. The same thing up here with our account ID. I'm just going to unclick that. Now we do have the ability to map large mappings. You can map as a group by using the Boomi Suggest. And if you want to learn about Boomi Suggest, there's a hyperlink called What is Boomi Suggest, which will take you to a YouTube video and explain it. But the best way to learn about Boomi Suggest is to use it. So I'm going to come over here where it says Boomi Suggest, and I'm going to click on it. Boomi Suggest is going out and it's analyzing my data. And it comes back and it says our wizard has made 10 suggestions that are high confidence level. You can have a high, medium, and low confidence level mappings. So let's take a look at what it's mapped. Clicking on the next button, I see all of the fields that it has ideas that it can map. So it could take the company name field and it would map that over to the account name. The industry would go to the industry, the address, the addresses, the city and state. The state itself, you can also uppercase it on the fly if you would like to by adding a function. It's entirely up to you. This would uppercase it as well as send it over. We also have our postal code, country, phone, and website. I'm happy with all these, so I'm going to click on the next button. It shows me all the mappings once again, and you can compare this to what you have listed in your book on page 45. It lists all the fields that are mapped from and to. I'm pleased with it, so I'm going to click on the Finish button, and now my fields are mapped. Now every field has been mapped except for one field, and that is our status field. We're going to populate it with a default value of 1. The way we do it is we click on the blue arrow button, the drop down. We have one item that we can select, which is Set Default Value. We're going to set the default value 1 in there. We're going to click on the Save and Close button. We're going to click OK again, and now our map is configured. This concludes our video, but please complete exercise 13, map fields, before moving to our next video, which will be discussing map functions. When building integrations between different applications, many fields need changes to meet the destination system or the vendor specifications. The map function library offers ways to apply conversion logic to fields being mapped. This includes use cases where information is not present in the data source, allowing us to query it on the fly. There are 2 main function types. Standard functions, which do a single task, such as converting a string to uppercase. User-defined functions enable complex changes by allowing you to link multiple standard functions together to save as a reusable standalone function. We'll discuss the user-defined functions in our Developer 1 class. So let's go ahead and populate the Create Date field in our destination profile with the built-in Get Current Date function. Now watch as I use this function in our map. This is also going to be in your book on exercise number 14, Add Get Current Date Map function. This is in your book on page 47 to 49. In our map, account XML to CSV, we have in the center section the ability to add functions. I'm going to click on the Add Function to Map. We have a number of user-defined, string, numeric, date, lookup, connector, custom scripting, or properties. We're going to be going with a date as our category. We have two types of dates available to us. One is called a date format and the other is called a get current date. We're going to be using the get current date function. The function is placed in the center section. You can move it anywhere you want, up and down. However, you cannot move it into either one of the profile sections. We are going to add an additional field to the account CSV. Going to click on Elements, and we're going to add one element, which is the first item. I'm going to come down here, and we want to change this from New Flat File element to Current Date. Notice as I change it up here, it is reflected down here. Now I'm going to click on the Save and Close. It created the field. Now what we're going to do is manually map the result of the Get Current Date over to the Current Date field. Save and close. And now our map is complete. This concludes our map function video, but please complete exercise number 14, the Add Get Current Date Map function, before you move on to our next video. As part of our integration goal, we want to create output files in two ways for two purposes. One as an XML file to use for archiving, and the other as a flat file to be used for reporting. Now sometimes within an integration, like in our case, we may want to apply many operations to a document or a set of documents to serve different purposes. To complete this, we would use a branch shape. It's important to understand how documents behave as they are routed through the branch shape. And to better explain, let's take a look at the branch shape. The branch shape creates a copy of the documents and executes each in a sequential order. The first copy flows down path 1. Then, if successful, the second copy flows down path 2. Again, if successful, the third copy flows down path 3. And finally, path 4. A branch's path is executed to completion before going to the next branch. As the first path is successful, the second path begins. As the second path flows to success, the third path begins. However, this third path resulted in a failure. Documents only flow down later paths when and if necessary to complete the previous flow. Now in our example, the third path failed, so the fourth path is not executed. A branch shape can have up to 25 paths. However, most have between 2 and 6. So I'll demonstrate how to set up a branch shape for our process so we can complete the two separate actions upon our documents. We're going to be archiving documents to disk as well as translating the original documents to a common delimited type. This is exercise number 15, add a branch to manage the process flow. And this is in your book on page 50 to 52. To begin, we're going to drop and drag a branch shape from the Shapes palette to the process canvas. We'll click on Shapes, If you type in B, branch is the first one to come up. It will ask us the number of branches we want. We're going to go with 2. However, the greatest number of branches you can have is 25. The default is usually between 2 and 6. We are now going to unattach from the set property shape. We can bring our branch shape up here. We're going to attach the second branch to the map and the first branch to the set properties. We will also take the path after the map arrow and we're going to attach that to the disk. We will come up here, we will start, we will go down branch 1, we'll do our set properties and write to disk, we will return, we'll come down branch 2, we will map, and then we will write to disk. I'm going to click on save. And now we're going to click on test. We're going to run this now with our test Atom Cloud. We'll click on run test. It ran our test. Let's take a look at our output. If you come over to the disk, what you're going to see if you click on the connection data is you're going to find 2 files. One is BockleCorp2 and the other one is the date and time.dat. Now I had ran this once before, which was why we have a BockleCorp2 as opposed to a plain BockleCorp1. If I open this, you will see BockleCorp2 in the XML format. Click on the DAT file, you will now find your comma delimited file, and your file is in double quotes, and it also has column headers. Same thing when we click on our second one, Passcode Communications 2. Passcode Communications 2, you will find your XML file. If you click on the DAT, you will find the column headers, all fields double quoted, and it is all comma delimited. This concludes our video, but please keep in mind to complete exercise number 15, add the branch shape before moving to our next video. With our first process completed, let's deploy and manage our account XML to CSV process. Let's take a look at what makes Boomi the #1 integration cloud. With Boomi, you can move, manage, and administer data across all of your applications. Implement faster with a configuration-based UI. Deploy and monitor integrations in the cloud and on-premise. And provide continual innovation available through a true PaaS solution. The add-on provides the ability to have a centralized dashboard to control your integrations throughout your enterprise. With Boomi, you can log into one account online and manage all your integration processes you have running on Atoms across multiple locations anywhere in the world. It's extremely scalable with no single point of failure. For example, larger companies usually have business applications running in different data centers. Rather than installing separate instances of software, you can install our lightweight Atom runtime in each location and have a central view of all the Atoms running across your entire enterprise, regardless of where you install the Atoms in the world. This slide shows how we deploy to support a cloud to on-premise integration. In AtomSphere, the blue cloud configures and manages the integration. The integration runtime, which moves the data, resides on-premise behind the firewall. The Atom communicates with the applications, and all the data moves through the Atom, but does not run through the AtomSphere platform. Again, the Atom only initiates outbound communication to AtomSphere to communicate the status information for centralized monitoring, as well as to check for any Atom updates. This slide illustrates how we deploy to support a cloud to on-premise integration. AtomSphere, the blue cloud, configures and manages the integrations in the cloud. The actual integration runtime, which moves the data, resides on-premise behind the firewall. The atom communicates with the applications and the data moves through the atom, but does not run through the AtomSphere platform. Again, the atom only initiates outbound communication for AtomSphere to communicate the status for centralized monitoring, as well as to check for any atom updates. In our cloud-to-cloud integration scenario, the atom resides inside the Dell Boomi Atom Cloud, or another public cloud, so you can have an integration without involvement from your data center. Status.boomi.com displays the health of both the Atom Cloud and the platform. Visit the dashboard to view the latest information on performance and operations. This is what status.boomi.com looks like when everything is running smoothly. From this page, you can verify the status of the AtomSphere platform, the MDM platform, and our Atom Cloud. As soon as our team is aware of an issue, this page changes to show the current status of each. There is also a contact number given to report any issues you're experiencing. We have a statistics page, which will give us all the integrations processed, atoms deployed, mappings indexed, and functions indexed. Also, we have a notifications page, which will tell you about upcoming releases as well as our release archives. And our status will provide you the status of the Boomi Flow platform. You may be confused deciding whether to install and use a local atom or a cloud atom, but it's really quite simple. For demonstration purposes, we'll use the blue arrow to represent a local atom and the green arrow to represent a cloud atom. The bottom line is this: a local atom can get access to all resources, whether they are on-premise to on-premise, which means it's behind the firewall, on-premise to cloud, or cloud to on-premise, and cloud to cloud. You can use a cloud atom to get access to resources solely in the cloud and never need to directly connect to resources residing behind the firewall. When discussing atoms, let's briefly address the idea of environments. We create and manage environments in that Manage Atom Management page. An environment is a container housing the atom and the deployed processes. A specific atom can attach only to one environment at a time. Now, the true power of environments occurs with extensions, which is discussed in later classes. For now, let's just think of an environment as a dedicated deployment setup used to support the different integration development lifecycle phases. Within the environments, we'll attach to a specific atom to control the process runtime. The Boomi Atom Cloud is not attached to an environment yet, so it is listed as unattached in the attached atoms list. Once the environment is set up, we need to attach an atom to the environment. Within the Manage Atom Management tab, we can attach an atom to an environment via the Environment pane. To attach an atom to an environment, simply highlight the environment and click the atom from the attachments as displayed here. The atom is now attached to an environment, so we can attach a process to those same environments. You can attach a process to one or more environments via the Deploy tab. You'll simply highlight the process in the Processes pane. This isn't shown on the screen, but the guide will step you through each screen. Once you have chosen the process you want to deploy, you will then click the Attachments tab. There are two columns, Attached and Unattached Environments. From the Unattached Atoms column, simply select the environment or environments you want to deploy and click the arrow pointing to the left to attach the environment. Once complete, the selected environment will then appear under the Attached Atoms column. Our next activity demonstrates how to complete the deployment. I'm now going to demonstrate exercise 16, create an environment and attach an atom, and exercise 17 to deploy the process. Let's examine the differences between deploy and execute. It is important to understand deploying a process does not execute the process into an active production. Once a process is deployed, you must execute it either by manual execution via Manage Process Reporting, or by applying it to a schedule via Manage Atom Management, or by an external event starting a listener process. Think of it this way. When deploying a process, it's like putting an airplane on the runway. It hasn't taken off yet, but it's cleared for takeoff and waiting for the OK to start. Process schedules allow for this permission to take off by applying automation of an integration. This class only covers manual execution of deployed processes. If you'd like to learn more about setting up a schedule for your deployed process, think about taking our Developer 1 or Administrator 1 classes, or check out the user guide. Let's execute our process. I'll now demonstrate exercise number 18, execute the process. I've clicked Manage and Process Reporting to get into our process reporting page. Here we can execute a process by clicking on the green Execute Process button. A drop-down will occur, asking us to choose the atom we'd like to run the process on. I'm going to select the Test Atom Cloud. It will then list all processes that have been deployed to the Test Atom Cloud. We only have one, our account XML to CSV, so I will select it. And then I will click on the green Execute button. The process account XML to CSV is started. Once I execute my process, I can click on the green arrows, which is a refresh, to see the status of my process. As you can see, it is executed successfully. This concludes our video, but please complete exercise 18, execute the process, before moving on to the next video, where we will track live executions in process reporting. Our process is now successfully deployed, and we ran our first execution, so we should have at least one record displayed in the execution history in the Manage Process Reporting tab. Let's examine its key features. This view defaults to executions launched in the past hour across all atoms. Filters can set, and a new search completed to review the results. Execution records are highlighted to display document activity. This is a table-like view of everything, including inbound and outbound files. You can manually execute deployed processes in a particular atom. The execution view captures some key processing statistics. You can click on Filter links to sort by execution status. You can page through sets of 25 execution records. You can view high-level process logs to see the state of each step kicked off for the document in a workflow. And finally, you can click the last column to view the details of the first error message returned, if any. The first error message refers to connectivity errors in the start shape, or the first error that happens against your inbound document set. The execution actions are exposed in the Gear button dropdown per each execution thread and are important for advanced control and debugging. You can view the process, which will open the process on the Build tab. View the deployment components, which will view and open the component versions on the Build tab. You can view the process state, which will view real-time information about the step execution and duration. You can view the extended information. For this, you need administration privileges to view the execution, process, atom, and deployment IDs, and the ability to download execution artifacts. Finally, you can cancel a process execution, which would end processes in a pending state. I'm now going to demonstrate exercise 19 to track live executions in process reporting. We are in the process reporting screen. We are going to click on Manage and Process Reporting to get here. Currently, the auto refresh is off. If I turn the auto refresh on, it will be turned on and the table will be refreshed every minute. Let's take a look at the gear menu. Here we can view the process, view the deployment components, view the process state, and view the extended information. We're going to take a look at viewing the deployment components. This gives you all of the information about which components make up this particular process. You'll see the name, the type, the revision, who modified it, and the date it was modified. If we take a look in your book, it shows you to take a look at the account CSV. If I click on this little piece of paper, it will take me into the Build tab, and it will show me the profile of the account CSV in the Build tab. In closing this, I can click the little piece of paper, which will give me the log information. This will give me the time it was ran, the level. The level is either debug, info, warning, or severe, what shape it was, any external information, and any messages that might go along, such as executing the shape, how many documents were processed, etc. This concludes our video, but please complete exercise 19, track live executions and process reporting, before moving on to our next video on help and support. Before we end our class, let's discuss another essential feature, help and support. The first question you need to answer once you've decided to use Boomi is, what Atomsphere edition is right for my business? Here is a list of packages we offer. The Base Edition. This is a starter solution to integrate 2 applications. The Professional Edition, for businesses looking to fully integrate their back and front offices. Pro Support Edition, additional functionality to support real-time integrations. Our Enterprise Edition, which has advanced features to support complex enterprise needs. And finally, our Enterprise Plus Edition, with advanced features and connectivity to support large enterprise needs. For more information, you can visit our boomi.com website. So let's look at the wide range of Atomsphere support options. These are available from the Help menu within Atomsphere. First is the User Guide, which offers technical and procedural summaries of the Atomsphere features. Now, if you're curious about how a particular feature or shape works, visit our User Guide. The Support link enters our support portal to contact our support department with any Atomsphere concerns. The support options offered will depend upon your subscribed level of support. The community link enters the Dell Boomi community, and it includes forums to questions, knowledge center to find Dell Boomi authored articles, implementation guides, and videos, ideas on how you can submit and vote for upcoming releases, news to keep up to date on all Dell Boomi particulars topics, and the Education Services webpage to help you with your learning needs. Finally, there's a link to go directly to the community's ideas section. Let's enter the community. The first time you enter, you must check a box to accept its terms and conditions. The Dell Boomi community top menu is where the first 3 items after the home menu reflects the search support order. First, look at the forum to see if the question's already been asked. Next, try the Knowledge Center to see if the question and answer exists. If the answer cannot be located, try the Ideas section to suggest or vote on a feature. And keep current by looking at the Dell Boomi News. Also on the homepage, you can enter a question and search to find an answer. Find an item, use the global search in the right corner. It's powerful, easy to use, and the best way to get around in the community. For anyone who is new to the community, the New to Community Learn More link goes to the About Community space to learn more about how to best use the community. First, you want to update your profile and email communication preferences. To stay on top of everything Boomi, subscribe to the News Digest emails at least once a week. So let's put the community portal to use by going on a scavenger hunt. Let's say you're building a process and you want to know if mail connectors count against license connectors. Where would you learn about this? Let's go to the community to see if we can find out about those mail connectors. We'll click on Help and then Community. Inside the community, we can just type in mail connectors, and you'll see information about the mail connector. So you'll see how to use the mail connector, mail support, how to send an image to the mail connector using the CCC and BCC, and then you'll see the mail connector and licensing. Do mail connectors count against your license connectors? Well, they do count against the number of licenses you own. That's why we stress the importance of reusability by establishing shared folders that house your commonly used connections. Every new connector counts against the license count. So a process containing 5 Salesforce connectors on the canvas, but 3 of them are linked to the same connection component, then those 3 would count as one. So yes, it does, and this is how we would locate this information. For our second scenario, you want to learn more about the business rule shape. Where would you learn about this shape? When we want to learn general information about a particular shape, we can take a look at the user guide. By typing in business rules, we get general information about the business rule shape. This will tell you how it works, how things are executed, the user guide. Let's take a deeper look at the user guide. Boomi offers a comprehensive user guide for each of its platforms. You can get access to each user guide by clicking the same link, but the platform changes depending upon what guide you are using, such as Atomsphere, MDM, EDI, etc. The user guide is basically a searchable encyclopedia of Boomi shapes, technologies, and tools. It's a great place to get started to learn more about particular shapes, and you can find a lot of detailed information about many topics here. You can find it under the Help drop-down icon within the user guide, as shown in this image. Now that you have a general understanding of some of our self-help options, let's take a look at your third option, Boomi Support. The support portal is the recommended method for contacting support. You can access this via the help link to browse knowledge articles, work together with other users, or to open up a support case. You also can contact support directly by sending an email to support@boomi.com to open a support case. Phone support is also available by calling the support number in the portal to create a support case for a SEV1 issue. This is only for Premier and Premier Plus support and is available 24/7. Live chat is also available from Sunday 8 p.m. through Friday 8 p.m. Eastern Time for simple issues. This option is only available for Premier and Premier support. Let's examine how to open a support case using the preferred method. To create a support case from your Atomsphere account, simply go to the Help menu and click Support. The Boomi User Community homepage opens. Halfway down the page is the Contact Support section with 3 options: Chat, Call, and the one you want, Open a Case. The support window opens. When entering a support case, 3 different sections must be completed. Let's look at each in detail. The first section is the case information. The right side of the case information, make sure your contact number is correct. This makes sure our support team can contact you. You then need to select the product you wish to create the case for, either AtomSphere, Salesforce QuickBooks Widget, or MDM. Next, select the issue type. This allows our support team to narrow the issue. Once the issue type is selected, a severity will be chosen. Most customers leave the severity set at 2. Let's move to the case description. The first item is the subject. We include a brief, meaningful summary of the issue. For the description, include details about the error. Information such as connector and document type should be included. While it's not required, it is important to include the error message received. To do so, copy it from the process execution report on the process reporting screen. Under the process reporting, you can view the error message details. You can copy and paste the highlighted section into the support case description error message field. This is found under the Manage tab, Execution Timestamp, Error, which is below the process name within the document view. When the error message is pasted into the case description, the next field to complete is the steps taken. The field lists all of the steps taken to try to resolve the issue. Now, please be as descriptive as possible and include the business effect if the process is not able to execute successfully. The support case's final section is the environment information. Include the component, process URL to allow the support team to view the component or the process experiencing the error. To copy the process URL, just navigate to the process reporting page under Manage, Process Reporting to find the process with the error. Select the gear icon under the Actions and click View Extended Information. Once the Extended Information window opens, copy the extended ID, which is found on the first line. Next, click on the Add Filter and add the filter by the process ID to remove all other executions from the window. Paste the URL into the process component URL field. Select the application endpoints for the support case and list any connection types and data sources to help the support team find the information type, including where it is pulled from and sent. The support case is then complete and ready to submit. Click the Submit button to submit the case. Now, before ending our class, we want to look at how to deactivate a process. Deactivating a process prevents it from running on a schedule or executing within an environment. This is important in emergency situations where data needs to stop syncing immediately, or if you want to reclaim your connector licenses. Once the process is no longer available, it cannot execute in the environment, and it can only be run in test mode. I'm now going to demonstrate exercise number 20, how to detach an atom. We're now back in our application. We're going to click on the Deploy tab. We're going to highlight our account XML to CSV. Click on the attachments. Under Attached Environments, highlight Test. Click on the double arrow to detach the selected environments. It will now unattach the environment, regain the licenses, and move it over to the unattached environments section. This video concludes our Boomi Essentials class, but please complete the exercise before moving to your next Dell Boomi class.